Hey, everybody, welcome to the Startup Sense podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just as a reminder, if you get a chance to subscribe to the Startup Sense podcast on iTunes and Google Play, that way you never miss an episode. We have a great show for you today. As always, our guest is Johnny Chin. He is the co founder of a company called Bannerman. They are a security guard service company. So, kind of security on demand. They've done some pivots along the way. They went through Y-combinator in the summer of 2014. They raised some money, obviously, from Y-combinator. They've raised some money since then, but it's not public yet, so we're not going to talk about it. The company's actually profitable, which is kind of a surprise, and I guess a nice surprise. But let's talk to Johnny. Johnny, how are you, man?
How you doing? So glad to be here.
Oh, thank you, man. So I forgot to mention, so the employee count of the company right now is what?
26.
Cool.
So really blessed to work with great people here.
So you guys have been going at this for about 3 years. How have things changed from when you first started to what you guys are doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to chat through that. So our mission is everyone deserves to be safe, and we're building technology to make that a reality. So we've always had that North Star that we've been working towards. But in the early days, what we ended up doing was teaming up with a lot of bar owners and managers, as well as event planners, and helping them get last minute security for their events and for their venue. And along the way, there were different types of organizations and businesses that wanted to work with us because they heard that we had far better quality security guards that we worked with. And so there were offices that started wanting to work with us. And so we decided, sure, let's take a stab at that. And we soon realized that offices was such a better fit for who we were and with regards to what we wanted to build on the product side. And so we've since decided to focus entirely on offices and property management. And so pretty much today we're protecting a lot of medium-sized offices as well as these skyscrapers you'll see in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York City.
So you guys are more focused on corporate right now. I mean, what was the real reason for the switch? Was it just a better business model, revenue model, bigger opportunity, just more demand?
We were getting so many product requests across the board, and we learned one of the main things in Y-combinator was all about focus. You win when you focus. So for us, we wanted to focus on one experience, and offices and property management made the most sense from what we could develop from the product point of view. And fortunately, those customers do have a real need, so it ends up being a very valuable business. But the main reason was for product focus.
So what have been the biggest challenges so far? Was it developing the original technology, or was it the sales and marketing aspects, or was it finding and screening the right people, the right security guards?
Yeah, those are all certainly very interesting challenges. I think the most interesting challenge for us is doing something that's never really been done before. We're in an industry that it's very much pen and paper, phone tag. Security has been done one way for decades. And so we came in it at a very different approach, right? For us, it's software that's built from the ground up. So we want to educate people doing security on this new way of doing security. And so I think that's been a very interesting challenge. And all of that sort of stems from that.
Now, take, for instance, a property management company. What would they normally need security for? I mean, are we talking like in a luxury apartment building that needs someone on the premises at all times? Or is it just someone that drives around to the different properties in different parts of the day?
It's typically the former. That's who we like to work with. And the reason they would choose us is for two main reasons. One, the mobile technology, so the mobile app that the guards have, make the guards so much better at what they do well at the location. So they're able to take photos of incidents. There's GPS technology. They're able to get in communication with the right people instantly. What's more, so secondly, you probably see this in a lot of spy movies. You walk into a situation room, there are TV screens everywhere. So if you're Apple or Google, you can afford to pay millions of dollars to build out that room. But these property managers don't really have that. So what we've done is we've actually taken that experience and put it on a laptop for them. And so it's super useful. They could be on the go, pull out their phone or have their laptop, and they see, right away all the properties that they're managing and know everything is being handled. Every place is secure. Which guard is on site? Are all the instructions up to date, et cetera.
So this isn't just about the guards. This is about an overall, comprehensive security program.
Absolutely. And, the moral of the story here is technology can make security much more reliable, in case of an incident, we get that information to who needs to know about it much more quickly. And I think that dovetails nicely to what we're building now. Really proud about this pilot that we have going on, where we're going to be able to detect when someone's trying to walk in with a weapon or with a mask on, and we can alert our security guard right away when that happens.
Yeah, I think that is extremely valuable. Not just for these residential. I mean, across the board, residential properties, schools. I mean, nightclubs. I mean, I know you guys aren't necessarily in those businesses right now, but you come up with that technology, and that is a game changer for real. And that's the stuff that saves millions of lives. Maybe not
Yeah, and
millions,
that's
but
certainly our mission.
thousands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to us about, okay, in terms of growing the team. So when you told me that you guys were 20 plus, I was a little surprised you guys were that big right now, only because you guys haven't raised a ton of money. So how have you been able to scale the team, doing it lean, and then get to profitability on top of it?
Yeah, that really speaks to who we are and our culture. We like to solve problems with engineering and with math and with technology. We don't like to throw people or money at the problems. So I think by not having raised a lot of money, we've had to think very creatively and think about how tech can best leverage and solve problems. And so that very much speaks to who we are, where we want to solve these real world problems in the realm of personal safety. And how can we do that in the most effective way? And that's primarily through technology. Technology is so fascinating. That's something we really love. And I think we will prove more and more that technology can help save millions of lives.
Now, the markets you guys are in right now, so you're in San Francisco, LA, New York City, and Dallas, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any employees in those cities, or are all your employees out of San Fran? And then in those cities, you just have the independent contractors slash security people?
We do have team members in those cities.
Okay.
I think each of those cities has a different flavor, different culture. So it's important to really understand. You can imagine like being in Manhattan is completely different than being in Soma in San Francisco, right? So we want to make sure that our security is the most effective, and sometimes it's by learning, how a city runs.
Right. I mean, when I first, emailed you and wanted to bring you onto the show, I really thought you guys were just, on demand for security guards. And it's pretty clear that you guys are way more than that right now. So I think the pivots that you did maybe through Y-Combinator or afterwards were certainly in the best interest of the company long term. Now, on your website, you guys have a great list of companies, and I'm sure there's hundreds more that you work with. So Spotify, WeWork, Y Combinator, Cisco. What types of services are some of these companies using? Like let's use WeWork, for instance, right? Huge, co-working real estate conglomerate right now, worth 15 or $20 billion. How do you guys work with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we do is we make their life much easier with regards to managing security. They have locations across the country and around the world, and so when they're using our dashboard, and you can imagine on their team, on their security team, they have many team members. Our platform enables them to communicate amongst each other, just be on top of security. And that's what we want to do. We want to help save security teams at these large organizations hours in the day, right? And make their lives much easier and more organized. Because before Bannerman, it was very much email, Excel, phone tag. And now the beauty of it is you have all of this stored in one place. Everything from when the guard takes a photo of a broken glass, that's stored in your incident summary, tied to a certain location, and you can pass that along to your colleagues or to your boss, right? So having all that info starts getting really valuable for these organizations that really need to be on top of making sure that they're protecting their locations, their people, their assets.
What about banks? Do you guys work with any banks yet?
Not yet, and so I think what's really interesting is, as I mentioned before, our mission is everyone deserves to be safe. But I think the best way to get to that eventually is through focus. And so, we get requests all the time from completely different types of organizations. And the goal, obviously, for us is to one day be able to do that. But I think along the way, we have to be the best at certain segments first. And that's why we're really focused on property management and offices.
Okay, right.
But eventually, the goal will be to want to work with schools, work with banks. I think what we were developing in terms of the software and these great security professionals we work with can be the best for these organizations.
Yeah, I think those two in particular, schools and banks, big opportunity, but they certainly come with a lot of their own, problems and things that need to be solved ahead of time, and things you have to be able to anticipate,
Absolutely.
and build into the system. This is Jonah Lupton, founder of Jewel and host of the Startup Sense podcast. At Jewel, we help entrepreneurs and startup founders build, launch, and grow their companies by providing superior technology, marketing, and consulting services. We help clients of all sizes, budgets, and industries. We put our clients in the best position to raise capital, grow revenues, hire employees, and maximize their profits. For more information or to set up a free consultation with our team, please visit our website at jool.net. That's JOOL.net. How have you guys acquired your customers? I mean, I'm sure referrals and word of mouth is always fantastic, but what are you guys also doing in terms of sales and marketing?
Yeah, so it's been primarily outbound sales. We send off emails. We do attend certain specific conferences tied to the industry. But interestingly, most of it is word of mouth. People have great experiences with us, and they tell their network about how easy it is to be able to work with us and how much time they're saving when they're using the Bannerman dashboard, and they're not having to play phone tag with the individual guards and such. So we're really blessed that it's been that. But that's certainly something that we want to figure out, and that me as the CEO, that's where I spend a lot of my time. How can we figure out ways to accelerate and get in touch with decision makers faster? So that's certainly something that I think about a lot during the day.
Who is your ideal contact person at a large company? I mean, is it the chief security officer? I'm not even sure if that's an actual title, but who do you guys typically reach out to?
For larger organizations, it is teams of security, so director of security, head of security. Otherwise, it's facilities, so head of facilities, operations, and typically for property management, it's people in charge of vendor relationships.
Now, when do you guys? So you're in four major markets right now, and obviously those are four of the biggest cities in the country. So I'm sure that's keeping you pretty busy. But when do you guys expand into a new city, and what does it take to expand into a new area?
Absolutely, great question. For us, there is, how would you say, there's an ambition to want to have Bannerman be everywhere around the world, and that's certainly the goal. I think the most important thing is providing a stellar service, right? Having the best quality with regards to the dashboard you're using, as well as the security professional that you have protecting your location. So, we don't want to compromise on quality, and until we figured out the scalable way of doing that, it won't make sense to launch in a ton of new cities, right? So I think for us, what we really want to do is nail down the offering, and especially now that we're focused on the camera integration, really get it going in these massive markets we're already in, and then be able to figure out the next step from there, right? So, I dream of the day that we have this in every city around the world, because, I really believe in using technology to improve security for everyone. But I want to make sure that we do it the right way. And so if we were to just turn on all these new cities, I want to make sure that the quality is top notch. And so we're constantly trying to figure out better ways of doing that before we go and turn on these other cities.
Do you think you'll go international before you expand through the entire U.S., or really focus on U.S. for the next few years and then maybe go international?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely focus on the U.S. The U.S. market is pretty massive. What's more, I think when you go abroad, there's definitely complexity that you didn't even realize. Certain ways of how business is conducted, how people choose vendors or technology. So, I am not going, it takes a certain amount of humility to realize like what you understand about a certain market. And so, I definitely think if we were to go into a new country, there's so much we'd have to learn. And so want to make sure that we're doing it the right way.
Who's your ideal security guard? I mean, I've seen some references on the website, 3+ years experience, preferably law enforcement or whatnot, but who are typically the security guards that you guys have working, across the country, via your services?
I think the ideal security professional we work with is prior military, someone coming back to our country who's served. For me, personally, I have a lot of family in the military, so I built Bannerman with the goal in mind of helping people, be able to get work. And there's a lot that we do to make it really easy to work with Bannerman. You set your own availability on your mobile phone. That phone is basically there for you as your personal assistant. It's your Siri. It helps you set your schedule, get you to the right location. You have all the instructions right then and there. So, I think the ideal security professional that we work with is someone who served this country, and now we want to help them get more opportunities when they come back.
Now, are these, so let's call them, former officers or military veterans, whatever, that are perfect for your platform? Are most of them working part time, or are they finding full time employment through you guys?
The beauty of it is you can set your availability, and so there's a lot of flexibility that we offer. So it's pretty much up to you how often you want to be available to work with us.
Okay.
So
So,
yeah,
I mean, there's no minimum requirements in terms of, time commitment.
not at all. Nope.
Okay. And what is your pricing model? I mean, I'm sure it varies across the board, but on average, what are clients typically paying?
Yeah, so I can tell you that we're right smack in the middle. We're not charging exorbitantly for what we're offering. I think the beauty of the technology is that it makes it a very much a premium experience and product. But we're here to get it in the hands of as many people as possible. So we're not here to charge an arm and a leg. We'd rather have you come in, start using this new way of protecting your building, and then spread the message to all your network. So I can tell you that we're right smack in the middle. There are vendors that are way more expensive than us, and there are others that are cheaper than us. But I can definitely tell you that the technology makes us the best.
Okay. Trying to think what other questions I want to throw at you here. What have been, I mean, you talk about some of the challenges. Any missteps that you guys made along the way that if you could go back, you'd want to do them over again?
Yeah, I think running a company is very challenging. Doing something that's never been done before is really hard. But I can tell you that. So maybe a little bit about me personally. I've failed 4 companies before Bannerman. Um,
Hey, me
so
too.
I like to joke and say I'm a serial failure. So I've gotten really lucky with the team I get to work with. The people here are so brilliant. I think we've done a really good job of assembling the most incredible team. And a lot of credit goes to Antoine, my co-founder. This is our first rodeo together. So, he's been exceptional. But I think for us, we really believe in this mission, right? Everyone deserves to be safe. And so we've encountered a lot of mountains along the way, but we haven't given up, and the main reason is because we really believe in this mission. So that North Star really keeps us going. So I can tell you that, if I was working on anything else, I probably would have given up. I'm not going to lie. But this is something that I really care about. I've gone through experiences in my life abroad where I've, gone through some very sticky situations. So I really believe that we can, build technology to make people safer. And I really believe in that. And so, there have been some really interesting mistakes we made along the way. And I think, the TLDR would be for any new founder listening to this podcast. It's all about focus, right? Make sure that you're improving the customer experience, and everything else is sort of secondary to that. And so, I can definitely tell you that a lot of the mistakes I've made are getting distracted on other things and not really focusing on what matters most, which is the customer experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned or at least admitted that you've had some failures in the past. Certainly entrepreneurship is not easy, and the chances of hitting a home run the very first time are probably slim to none for most of us. What were the biggest lessons? So 4 companies, what were they all tech type companies?
Yeah, all tech, very good ideas. But I think I got really lucky with Antoine and with this mission that we're working on. And I think I think it's all about moving really fast, right? Like I think you're constantly trying to spend as much time as possible listening to the customer, and improving the quality of the product for them. And this time around, we've done our best to be as nimble as possible, right? Like the only constant in the world is change, so we're constantly evolving, and we're not really resting on our laurels. Sure, we've built some really interesting technology, but we obsess on the problem as opposed to our own solution, right? And I think that's really interesting, where you're obsessing on the problem, which is people deserve to be safer, and you're constantly building it to make that more of a reality. So that problem is really not going away anytime soon. So instead of saying, "Oh, that's so awesome, we just moved into this new office, we're in Silicon Valley, we're so cool," it's more so like, "Hey guys, we still got a long way to go. What can we do? What other products that we could release or features to make people safer?"
What is your end game with this company? I mean, I ask this question to everyone, and I know it's hard to answer because the typical answer is, well, we're going to build the biggest independent company we possibly can. But I mean, have you ever kind of sat down and thought about where you want to be in 3 to 5 years, whether or not this is a company that could get acquired, or is this an IPO candidate, or whatever the case might be?
Millions of lives saved. And I know that sounds really outrageous. That sounds like a big dream. But, once we saved one life, we're like, wow, let's figure out ways to save more. When starting Bannerman, I never would have even dreamed that we'd get to this point. It seemed just so obscure or so unlikely. So now that we're here, we're like, great, let's continue to shoot for those big numbers and that big mission. So, it's millions of lives saved. I can tell you that.
So adding the components of cameras and dashboards, and maybe the AI comes into this somewhere when you're trying to detect weapons or other devices that may people might be trying to sneak on premises. Are you guys going to build all that technology yourselves, or are you partnering with other companies that have already done it?
We've been really lucky to have fantastic vendors or other entrepreneurs that want to work with us. So, I am not going to pretend that we can build everything ourselves, right? Like, you won't be the best at everything if you build it all yourself. So we're certainly open to working with some fantastic other, entrepreneurs or security vendors. But what I can tell you is, here at Bannerman, we are lucky to have built great relationships with these offices and property managers. And so for us, we want to act as the ambassador from them to these other, security vendors, if you will.
So I know, so Y-Combinator gave you guys, I think it's what, 120,000. That's the typical investment when you join them. And you guys have raised some money afterwards. I know you're not ready to talk about it yet, but out of those investors, what's the best piece of advice that you've gotten from those investors thus far?
That's a great question. We've been really lucky to get a lot of great advice. Sometimes it's very specific. Other times it's just, more like, keep it up, champ. But I think the most important thing is the investors we work with don't have an arrogance where they think they know more about the market or the business than we do, but sort of help bring out the answers through our interactions. Like, they'll ask the right questions. And I think that really is what separates like a great mentor from someone who's like good or okay, where oftentimes you have the answers within. And it's simply about asking the right questions to really pull that out. And I think that's just with time. These guys are, they're super wise. They've been at it themselves. They've seen failures. They've seen successes. Other than that, I think, that if I were to TLDR again, it would be focus, right? I think, you by nature, entrepreneurs have great ideas, and it's really hard to shut them off, right? I get ideas all the time. So it seems almost unnatural to have to turn off these great ideas. But once you really have something that's working, you have to turn off these ideas that could be distractions and really just focus. And so that's really something that these best mentors have really taught me.
If you were going to sit down and give one piece of advice to someone who's looking to start a company in the next 6 months, what would you tell them?
Don't give up. Never quit.
What about in terms of fundraising, right? So, this is a question I've started asking because I think this goes to your point, don't quit. A lot of people that need to raise 1 million or 2 million for their seed round or mostly their seed round. A round's a different animal in itself. So typically the seed round, I think in order to raise $1 million, from 10 or 12 investors, you may have to pitch 50 or 60 people. How many people did you have to pitch in order to raise your official seed round after YC?
I can tell you that I've met many investors in my time, and I've heard a lot of no's. And so, I think there's really interesting things there. Like, you have to, as an entrepreneur, have thick skin to not let it get to you. But you should really listen to the feedback. These guys are where they are for a reason. A lot of them have good ideas, or they've seen a lot of things. They have really specific, learnings, or even some pattern recognition. So you want to find the right balance of, okay, they said no, but why? What were some of the reasons? What can I learn from that interaction or from that no to help me get better and help my company get better? So I think there's a right balance for entrepreneurs. And I think just, don't be afraid to hear no. And I think when I go into a meeting with an investor, I view it just as a learning experience. Wow, this person's pretty cool. They've gotten to where they've got to for some reason. I'm going to learn one thing from this. I'm not going to stress about if I say the right thing or if I don't use these or like fillers. I'm just going to focus on learning what I can from this interaction. And it's going to be a bonus if they say, great, let's move on to next steps. So I think that's a really healthy attitude, something that another friend of mine instilled in me early on when I was thinking about fundraising. And I think that's something that I love to share with the other entrepreneurs, listening to this.
What is your biggest flaw as an entrepreneur?
I think what makes me, I'm good at not everything, but I'm good at many things, and I'm not great at one thing. And so I think I've been really lucky to be able to hire people who are excellent. And so I recognized that flaw early on and filled out a team with people who are just the best at what they do. But I think that's my biggest flaw, is just being like okay or good at most things.
Let's see here. I'm trying to think. We've gone through a lot of questions already. Anything that we kind of skipped over that you wanted to really hammer home for the listeners, either about the company, about your journey, any marketing hacks or recruiting tips?
I think recruiting is far more important than most entrepreneurs realize. Funny story. I think the one class that I cared the least about in grad school was HR. It ends up being one of the most important things that I do on a daily basis. And so when you hear about the greats that spend almost 50% of their time on recruiting, that's real. That's true.
Yeah. Oh,
So
sure.
I think, as an entrepreneur, you always want to sharpen your skill to the ability to convince, right? To the ability to convince an investor to write a big check, the ability to convince an early customer to join. But also most important, I think, is the ability to convince the smartest people to join your company. I think what really changed at Bannerman is the day that we started getting people that I never thought we'd be able to come join us. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. This is so humbling. And I think most entrepreneurs don't think about that soon enough. Like, if I were to do it over again, I would start trying to hire the best people that I know earlier on, right? So I think that's probably one of the most important things. Hire the best. You want to have the winning team in order to win that championship.
What was the tipping point, or what changed that put you guys in a position to start hiring better people?
Yeah, I can't think of one significant tipping point. I think might have just been my own confidence, to be perfectly honest. I think, maybe I had it in me to be able to convince whoever was on the other side of that table to join us, but maybe I didn't have the confidence within that the person there would want to join us. So I think it came from within, to be perfectly honest. Like, that confidence came from within.
I mean, do you think that original business model of, mostly working with bars and events, you doubted the upside potential versus once you kind of pivoted into the corporate security, you kind of knew that you guys had nailed the product market fit?
It was less so about the opportunity, because there are thousands of bars across the US. So there's definitely a large opportunity. I do really think that it was me being an unproven entrepreneur. And that's why in large credit goes towards my mentors, Y-Combinator. They believed in me at times where I was like, oh man, am I actually going to get to the next stage? Right. So, I think you also want to surround yourself with very positive people that believe in you. You certainly believe in yourself, but, sometimes you're like, oh, like, can I do this? And it turns out you can. I think you just need someone who's done it before that says, yeah, you're going to do this. Sorry, it's a little bit more murky, but I think that's what it is to answer, I think, what I thought you were asking.
From watching Bar Rescue with John Taffer, I think he's rattled off there's like 60,000 bars in the country. So it is a very large number for sure. No doubt about that. Well, that's pretty much all I got for you, Johnny. I mean, unless anything else you wanted to add, or at least can you tell us how we can track you down online? Do you use any social media personally?
Yeah. Hit me up on Twitter, guys. I love helping the next entrepreneur. I think one of the most important things is paying it forward. The world needs more entrepreneurs. So it's definitely a very long and tough journey. But if there's some way that I could even just be a pick me up, hit me up. Sam Clam Disco is my handle on Twitter. So hit me up. There is the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for, spending half an hour with us today and sharing all this great advice. And certainly, if any big changes happen with the company or anything exciting you want to come back and tell us, feel free anytime.
Awesome. Thanks for the time.
You got it, man. Thanks, Johnny. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.